If you had to place a wager on which vehicle would be the best-selling car in America that isn't a pickup truck, your money would be pretty safe on the Toyota RAV4. But halfway through 2026, it's actually the Honda CR-V that's leading all vehicles in sales, and the Camry, not the RAV4, is actually Toyota's bestseller. Now, why is that? There's actually a brand new 5th generation RAV4 out, and you'd think that customers would be rushing to the dealerships to buy it. That's the subject of today's video. Is this all new RAV4 just not that good, or is there another reason why the RAV4 just isn't doing all that well in sales? You're watching Autoblog. So we're going to start off with a walk around of the new 2026 Toyota RAV4. This is the top limited, most luxurious trim level. We are just reviewing the standard hybrid, not the plug-in hybrid. And we are reviewing this in August of 2026, where we have now half a year of 2026 sales. So we have just under, I think it's about 155,000 sales of the Toyota RAV4, but we have a little over 170,000 sales of the Toyota Camry. So the Camry is actually outselling the RAV4 so far this year. Now, that is not normal, at least in terms of the past couple of years for the RAV4 and the Camry. But the reason why is interesting. It's not because this RAV4 is bad. I mean, just look at it. It is a different design than the previous one. They've definitely updated it. This limited trim has this kind of body color grille, these kind of hexagonal cutouts here in the grille. It's the most luxurious, it's kind of the most Lexus-y. It kind of has some elements of the Crown Signia to it. So each of the different flavors of RAV4 has like a very different design to it. There are a couple of different trim levels that look very different. So you have like the Woodland, which is kind of the off-roady looking one. You have the new GR Sport, which is like very sporty, and they do change quite a bit. The XSE is like very sporty as well. So you can change up your flavor of RAV4 quite a bit, but it's not because they radically changed the styling that the sales are down. And I want to make this point very clear. It is because they changed over production. So they can't produce quite as many of them as they can before they are doing that. So sales are just going to see a drop. Now, the car that I want to compare that to is the Subaru Outback. Everybody criticized the Subaru Outback when it came out because it was so aggressive and it was so different than the previous Outback. It didn't look like a station wagon, and the Wilderness model was so ugly and aggressive. And everybody says that sales tanked because of the redesign. But Subaru said it wasn't because of the redesign. It was because they actually moved production from Indiana all the way back to Japan. That's hard to do. And you look at something like the RAV4, which is like the best-selling vehicle in America, and you look at this redesign, which is by all accounts like pretty handsome. Nobody's looking at this and going, this doesn't look like a RAV4. It totally does. But sales are still down. So I just want to use this as my example to say that sales can go down even when you don't radically restyle a car. So that's my point there. So here on this limited trim, interestingly enough, we actually just get 18-inch wheels. You don't get 20s. You can option up to 20s, although they are a little bit expensive. I think they're like $800 or something like that. So you do have to option up to 20-inch wheels here. So 18s, which is not bad if you just want kind of a better ride or you don't want to curb them or anything like that. And even here on this limited trim, we do kind of have this plastic material here on the squared off wheel arches. So they've kept that from the previous generation of RAV4. And here at the back, this is the one element of the new RAV4 that I really wasn't sold on when it debuted. Hasn't really grown on me that much either, is the taillights. They kind of just remind me of the Nissan Rogue, but that's just me. It's fine, to be honest. And then we have this tiny little Toyota logo right here. It's just a little bit weird down here. Sorry, I didn't have the camera on it. This tiny little Toyota logo right here. But other than that, the Toyota RAV4 design just hasn't changed too drastically in this new generation, which is fine. Toyota is a very conservative brand in terms of styling, so they really didn't have to do much in the styling department. Now, while I think Toyota made some decent improvements with the RAV4's exterior, that's not where this car needed some help. It needed to improve the infotainment system. The last RAV4 had a pretty basic one, and Toyota overhauled it. It now has what I believe is one of the best infotainment systems you can get in any car. And they did so, they actually handed this off to America. So this was actually developed in the US by the US Connected Technology team. So this was not done by Japan. So you can get either a 10.5-inch screen on the lower trims or this 12.9-inch screen like you see here. The infotainment system is going to look exactly the same. The operation is not going to change. So even if you get the smaller screen, trust me, it still looks and feels great. So don't think you're missing out if you only get the smaller screen. And let me tell you what you get on this screen that makes it so great. You get a better voice assistant, you get a customizable home menu, you get 5G built in, you get this version of Spotify that is really good, that better than even Apple CarPlay has, and you actually get a built-in dash camera. So all really, really cool stuff. Pretty much, this is one of the systems that I think you could actually live with and not use Apple CarPlay. I think a lot of people are just going to come in, set up their phone, and use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto because both of those are still here. Toyota is not trying to replace Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Don't worry, those are still here. But this system is nearly good enough that you could if you wanted to. In fact, I have actually been trying to do that this week as I've been driving the RAV4. One of the things that's really good here is Spotify. Let me show you what that looks like. So I've got my playlist up here. This is called Bangers Only. I live in the 2000s. It's like the only music I listen to. You can make fun of me all you want, but here's Bangers Only. So I've got the song here, looks really good. I can customize my sound adjustment like right here. So the interface is fantastic because Toyota actually worked with Spotify here. You can do Apple Music as well, but the Spotify is the best one. And the playlist is actually going to show up here with what songs are coming up next. So if you have a little bit of music craziness and you don't always like to, listen to the whole song and you want to see what's coming up next, you can actually scroll through it and just see the whole list of songs. I love this, to be able to just kind of jump along and just like play the next song. You can't do that on Apple CarPlay. So that is a really, really cool feature that I absolutely love. That's fantastic. That's actually better than Apple CarPlay. So that's a really cool feature. But again, you just don't have access to kind of every music streaming feature the way that you just have it so easy in Apple CarPlay. You have your weather app right here, which is really nice. You can kind of talk to the system and say, hey, Toyota, adjust my temperature to 70 degrees, please.
Okay. Setting to 70.
And as you can see, that was pretty easy. So the voice assistant is pretty good here. You can adjust it, your home menu as well. You can make that pretty easy. You have your Google-based maps here that work pretty well. But unlike Apple CarPlay, you just wouldn't have access to Waze and maybe some other navigation apps that you would use. So it is a little limited in that capacity, that it might not be quite as expansive as what you would have as plug and play as Apple CarPlay. But like I said, Apple CarPlay is available here if you want to use it. You do also have text messaging. You can say, hey, Toyota, text so-and-so, and it will just do that as well. The text message reader is almost as good as Apple CarPlay's, I'm not going to lie. The only thing that it does is once you've read the text on your phone, it doesn't clear it on this. I wish Toyota would kind of have it like linked and stuff. So again, just not quite as quick and automatic as Apple CarPlay is. But let me show you the dash cam because that is amazing. You can trigger it right here if you just want to record an event just by clicking that button. It will do so automatically if it detects that you get into an accident. That's great, so you don't have to have a big bulky dash cam up on your car. That's fantastic. I know a lot of people are installing them now. There's a lot of insurance fraud schemes going on right now, but it keeps it all here on the screen. That's fantastic. You can go back and watch these. It actually tells you where the incident occurred, like where it recorded. It shows you what speed you were going. That's great if you want to show the officers, no officer, I wasn't speeding. You can see it right there. It shows the different angles. You can actually show, because this has front and rear cameras, all RAV4s, even the base LE model, are going to have this. If you get a model that has a 360 camera, it's going to be able to show that as well. This is fantastic stuff. I'm so happy that Toyota actually puts this on all Toyota RAV4s. So that is really cool as well. I believe you get 6 speakers on this system as standard. We've got the optional JBL 9-speaker audio system, which is actually better than most JBL speakers I've tested are in Toyota systems. So a little bit of an improvement there. And I actually really like this gauge cluster as well. It was pretty bad before. It was very hard to like kind of customize how you wanted. Now it's like very easy. You just kind of cycle through like which kind of theme you want, whether or not you want it to be a map, whether or not you want it to show your kind of fuel economy gauge, and then you just kind of pick which information you want, whether you want it to show your trip or whatever. It's still very simplified, but now at least you don't have to like pull over and customize what you want. It was really basic and hard to use before, and now it is a lot better. So now that the infotainment is tackled, let's show you the rest of the interior here, where I will say, even though this is the top limited trim level, we've got some, let's just say, nice features, but questionable materials, but I will say a really nice layout. So we've got the leather interior, we've got kind of this beige material here, heated and ventilated seats here up the front. We've got a very airy interior because we've got the panoramic roof here that stretches all the way to the back. We've got power seats here on the driver's side. We've actually got a very deep cubby here for a cup. We've also got extremely deep pockets here on the door here. You can fit your entire fist in there, and I've got some pretty big palms here as well. So again, lots of places to put stuff is going to be the theme here on the interior of the Toyota RAV4. Something that Toyota has touted for a little bit now is going to be this armrest here. So you've got kind of this soft material here, opens up this way, opens up the other way for the passenger. They do this on Lexus models as well. But if you kind of grab it from both ends, you can kind of lift it out and flip it the other way like so, and now you have kind of this hard surface here. Kind of an interesting thing that you can do there with that. You have this little kind of nubby electronic shifter here that allows you to do the smart parking here on the Toyota RAV4. You access it with that button here. You don't get that if you have the kind of normal shifter, which is available on some other trim levels here. You've got your cup holders here, and you can actually remove this little piece right here to turn that into just kind of some deeper storage there. You also have some storage right here, very deep as well. This can be storage as well, or on this upper trim, you can get 1 or 2 wireless phone chargers. We have the optional 2 wireless phone chargers. There's the digital gauge cluster that I showed you a little bit. We also have the optional head-up display. There's our big screen that I told you about. You do have a few buttons here for your temperature controls, but everything else is going to be handled on the touchscreen. We do have a volume knob as well. We've got our digital rear view mirror, a feature that I very much like here. You do still have your sunglass holder up here, and then you have a nice little cubby up here in front of the passenger. So again, just tons of little storage cubbies to put places everywhere up here in the front of the Toyota RAV4. And while the RAV4 is so great up front with all of those various cubbies and things to put stuff, in terms of rear seat legroom, it's kind of below average with just under 38 inches of legroom. As you can see, I'm 5'9" on a good day, so I fit back here just fine. But compared to the rest of the class, it's really not the best. The Honda CR-V is bigger, and there are other bigger options in the segment as well. I can recline a little bit here with this seat, which is a nice feature. And here on this upper trim, I've got air vents, heated seats, and USB-C ports. So I really don't need much more, at least here on this top limited trim. But in terms of just space overall, there are better options in this segment. That's really the same deal here in the trunk, where the space is kind of just average. You get a little under 38 cubic feet. You could fold down the seats to get about 70 cubic feet, but there are just bigger options than that. The RAV4 is not the most spacious. You can just get better cargo hauling options, but I guess that's not really why people buy a Toyota RAV4. And while Toyota was focused on giving you all of those cubbies and stuff up front, they didn't give you release latches back here to make it easier to fold down the seats. You have to reach all the way over here to grab the seats and tip them forward. So again, Toyota did some really great things up front, but they weren't focused on giving you the most practical and most spacious vehicle in the compact segment. So what is it about the Toyota RAV4 that makes this one of the best-selling cars in the world? Because at this point in the video, you might be questioning that. The interior doesn't have the best materials. It has a great infotainment system, but that only came around recently on this brand new 5th generation model. It's not the biggest car in the segment, not even close, and it really hasn't been for a while now. So what is it about the RAV4 that makes it so successful? Let's see if we can find out here on the road by doing something that almost no RAV4 owner will ever do. Flooring it from a start. Foot on the brake, foot on the gas, accelerator and gas pressed simultaneously, and let go. In sport mode, incident detected on the dash cam. That was 0 to 60 in 7.17 seconds. That's really not a slow time for a crossover in this segment. That's pretty quick. That is because this RAV4 has the 5th generation of Toyota's hybrid system, and it is a pretty good one. You get 226 horsepower if you go with front-wheel drive, 236 horsepower if you go for all-wheel drive. You've got a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine under the hood, and you have 2 electric motors. Now, you can have an electric motor at the rear axle. That's how you get all-wheel drive on this car. The limited trim that we're driving is going to be the all-wheel drive version. That's why we're a little bit quicker there with the 7.17 second 0 to 60 time. The all-wheel drive is not the most robust in this segment because it's not an actual axle doing the drive to the rear. So if you live somewhere where it's cold, yes, this is all-wheel drive, but it's not the most rugged all-wheel drive system driving the rear wheels because it is just a little tiny electric motor doing the powering of the wheels back there, but it is a very efficient system. And if we're talking about what makes the Toyota RAV4 so good, it's this powertrain. It really is. Toyota has just perfected this. This is so good that other automakers have started basically buying this system and putting it in their cars. Mazda has a version of this in the CX-50. Jeep now has kind of a version of this in the Cherokee, and they're pretty good, honestly, because they now use a version of the Toyota hybrid system, but the RAV4 is still pretty much the best one that you can get in a crossover right now. Because those power numbers, remember, the RAV4 is only a hybrid right now. There's no gas version of the RAV4. So 226 horsepower, that's the standard horsepower number. There's no lower version that has like 180 horsepower. 226 is going to be your standard, but your fuel economy is going to be excellent on the base version of the RAV4. 43 miles per gallon combined. You're not really beating that in any competitor to this car. That is just outstanding numbers. You're going to get 47 mpg in the city. You're going to get 40 on the highway. It actually does better in the city than it does on the highway, netting you a combined mpg of 43 mpg on the lowest trims of the RAV4 with kind of the smaller wheels. That's excellent, and that's why people just trust the RAV4 and love this car so much. Now, the all-wheel drive trims, the nicer ones, the XLEs, the Limiteds, the one we're driving right now, are a little bit lower, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you they're still excellent. They are rated to do a combined 41 mpg. So you're gonna get 45 mpg in the city, still excellent. 38 mpg on the highway, again, still excellent, not 40, but still pretty close. And then, like I said, 41 mpg combined. So the fact that even when you add kind of bigger wheels and you're adding all-wheel drive, the fact that you can still get a combined over 40 mpg, that's still pretty amazing. And I've been driving this car for about 150 miles this week, and I have been averaging, let me pull up my average, I've been averaging about 43 mpg, so that's more than the EPA says I would do. So let me just tell you, Toyota's averages are a little bit under optimistic, so you can easily get that 41 mpg if you have a light enough foot. And while I'm already impressed by the acceleration and the efficiency of the regular RAV4, there is another option available. On certain trim levels, you can get the plug-in hybrid, which has gotten even better in this current generation. You now get a whopping 324 horsepower out of the plug-in hybrid. It just has basically bigger electric motors. It's a bigger battery and bigger electric motors, and that's how they get the extra power out of it. And it is ridiculously quick. I have personally tested the plug-in hybrid version 260 miles an hour in just over 5 seconds. I think 5.34 was the quickest that I got it to. That is ridiculous for a Toyota RAV4. And in fact, in just electric mode, because you can pretty much go foot to the floor in just electric mode, it'll do 0 to 60 in about 8.5 seconds. That's quicker than a lot of the RAV4's competitors will do 0 to 60 in just their gas versions. That's crazy how quick that is. And in just electric mode, you will do 52 miles on a single charge. That is incredible. Like, most PHEVs only do about 35 miles on a charge. So 52 miles in the highest trim level, that's great. You could really do your commute on that. And Toyota has added the ability on some of the trim levels to do DC fast charging. Not sure how useful that is, but it's available, which is really cool. So you might want to consider the PHEV. The only thing that would maybe deter me from doing that, because the speed is honestly great, is going to be the cost. All that's left to do now is talk about the pricing. And although the RAV4 is a super hot seller, it's not exactly the most affordable thing in the segment. Toyota has just been adding lots of features, and although consumers love features, that does creep up the price quite a bit. You know, hybrid systems cost money, infotainment systems like this cost money, and that makes the car a little bit more expensive. So a base LE is going to start at just under $32,000. Remember, this is a hybrid vehicle that gets 43 mpg combined, so you do get kind of a lot for your money in terms of like powertrain and the infotainment and stuff, and it is decently well equipped, but the fit and finish just kind of isn't there compared to some of the other vehicles in the segment. Stepping up to the SE is going to pull you just under $35,000, and that is going to be the first trim where you can actually get a PHEV powertrain as well. The PHEV is significantly more expensive at $41,500, so about $7,000 more expensive. I don't know if I think it's worth the premium anymore. In previous years, you would have been able to get a federal tax credit to offset a lot of that cost, but that is now gone. So I just don't know if the extra power and the electric driving range is going to be worth it. You have to really do a lot of spreadsheet math to see whether or not you're going to be able to offset that, and I just don't think that many people are going to be able to make that math worth it. And the SE trim is just a little bit Spartan to be spending $41,000 on, in my opinion. The XLE Premium is where the RAV4 starts feeling a little bit nicer for $36,000. There's the Woodland trim where it starts feeling a little bit more off-roady. You know, if you wanted a 4Runner but don't need a lot of the off-road capability, that's a little bit under $40,000. There is a PHEV version of that for $45,000. Then there's the XSE. I actually really like that one. That's where the RAV4 starts to look sporty for $41,300. I actually kind of prefer that to the XLE Premium, although it is a little bit more expensive. There's also a PHEV version of that, but it is pricey at $47,200. Then there's the Limited that we've been driving. It's $43,300, but it does not have everything as standard. You have to option up to 20-inch wheels. Those are not standard even on the Limited trim, and you've got to add some other things as well onto this trim level. And then at the very tippy top, there is the plug-in hybrid GR Sport, the coolest looking one, but not the most well equipped in terms of features. It doesn't even have ventilated seats for $48,500. It is a very cool RAV4, but at nearly $50,000, I think it is a very niche product. So that was the 2026 Toyota RAV4. Is this the perfect SUV? No, I don't know if that necessarily exists, but it is a really, really good one. The design hasn't changed all that much, so if you liked it before, you'll probably like this new one. The materials on the inside are not perfect, but they really weren't before. The infotainment is a huge improvement. It's honestly one of the best infotainment systems on the market right now. The interior materials just really aren't that great, but the ride is better than before. The powertrain is honestly honestly, I think the best in the class, and the fuel economy is truly unbeatable. You are paying a little bit of a premium for the Toyota badge and for the amazing fuel economy. The power is honestly great, especially in the plug-in version of this car. You're just getting incredible range, incredible fuel economy, and more performance than what you're getting in a lot of this vehicle's competitors. So it is a really nice package, despite not being the most premium of all of the options, despite not being the best value of all of the options, and despite not being the biggest of all of the options. So while you could cross-shop this with some Hyundai and Kias that are a little bit bigger and a little bit cheaper, this is a really great package. And I do think once Toyota has ramped up production to kind of full scale, sales will pick up. And I do think that for 2027, when they have kind of a full calendar year under their belt, the Toyota RAV4 should be back on top as one of the best-selling vehicles in America, if not the best-selling vehicle in America. I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, leave us a like, that would be great. Subscribe to our channel, and if you love reading about cars, check out autoblog.com. That is where you can learn a lot more about the Toyota RAV4, and you can even read my work over there. I'll see you next time.